Let's roll rolling at the start. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with our bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up. We're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas up, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas thugs, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.
And we're live. How's it going? Do I sound all right?
Sound good to me.
Okay, cool. What's up, Jamie? I see Jamie was in chat. Sorry we're a few minutes late, you guys. Obviously, if you're in the Discord, you know, but my main computer broke. Just wouldn't turn on one day. And actually, it would turn on, but it said no hard drive found. So, I don't know. I tried to troubleshoot it. I couldn't figure it out, so I had to take it over to some professionals to fix. Don't have it back yet, and I don't know when I'm getting it back. So that kind of sucks. But anyways, we're running on the old laptop. It's like 15 years old, so we're gonna give this thing a shot and go from there. If it ends up being horrible, we'll probably just cut the show off, or I'll mute myself and let Atlas finish or something like that. But I see Chris there calling out Atlas's headwear. I don't know. Is that
brought back by popular demand. Got the do-rag back on. I couldn't
Nice.
find the black one. I tried to find the black one. I couldn't. I actually have no idea where it's at when we moved. But back by popular demand. I wanted to put that back on. Wear my my Islamic headgear on here.
That's pretty funny. So, to add to what I was saying about the computer. Sorry, I got this feedback. I'm gonna have to fix this here in a second. I can hear myself and it's delayed, and it's throwing off my cadence. But tonight we're gonna get into the Epstein Files whistleblower, who is essentially alleging that the files related to Jeffrey Epstein are being deleted, or at least maybe a portion of them. I don't know. We'll look into it a little bit more. Gavin Newsom launches a podcast. Good luck with that. I don't know. The woke cult is strong, so he'll probably do all right. Trump unveils this $5 million gift card for citizenship. We'll dig into that and find out what the ramifications, short-term, long-term, potentially could be with that. And then we got the WHO Global Lab Network is on the brink of collapse, which a lot of people think that's a good thing. And then Trump's AI vision for Gaza. So we'll try to get into all these things and more. We do have Kash Patel confirmed leading the FBI, and he did hire Dan Bongino to be his number two. Sorry, I had to do that. But in the FBI, Dan Bongino being a former Secret Service dude and all that stuff, and what's going on with him. He's got one of the biggest audiences, one of the biggest shows on our political side of the sphere, and you know, what's he, you know, what's going on with that whole story. So I know Atlas has been super busy. It's one of the reasons why we had to cancel the last show, was because, first of all, that was the day my computer broke, and then Atlas actually starting off this new position at a training. Tell us a little bit about it if you want, and we'll kind of go from there. It's weird. I got the outline on the same screen that the StreamYard is on. While you do that, if you want to take us into the first topic, I'm going to try to fix my echo going on.
Yeah, definitely.
So, take your
make sure you fix that up. So no, I had getting insanely, what's the word, swamped with work. Supposed to be clocking out at 6 every day. Looks like that's definitely not going to be the case. Yesterday, for example, I had a call, took me all the way until 7:20, but I did sell that final call though. Got a hat trick, got 3 in one day. Actually did really well for myself. But
Nice.
ultimately it's kind of like, a victim to that kind of schedule now. So I do get a call in the final minute, got to take it and take it as far as I can, because I can't burn leads like that. But with that out of the way, we all got to make sure and hope that World can fix his computer and get that booted up for this Saturday as well, that we don't have any more technical difficulties. Though that plagues us in the first little bit here. But they want to say again hi to Jamie here. Chris is here in chat as well. Looks like we've got Sam Rogers from Australia. Thanks everybody for being here. Now, this first topic is one that's kind of been pretty, in particular to me, one that I found to be very, very important. Now, the reason I say that too is because I think it ultimately has a large amount of weight on a couple of things. I think most specifically, there's a lot of societal weight that will ride on what we get with the Epstein Files. I mean that in terms of, if we go by what the hypothetical is, which is if we go by what's on these Epstein Files, meaning that we have large amounts of very highly influential people, anybody from high-ranking members of Congress, other politicians, as well as big bankers, as well as celebrities. So essentially all of the names that most people could recognize on a first name basis, or first and last name basis, I should rather say. And it turns out that they're actually all involved in some kind of deep nefarious blackmail ring that involves what we would call the trafficking of children, in which for other activities, blackmail, maybe, other things like that, other things that you wouldn't want to be caught on camera doing, being held against you to influence you for a specific reason. Well, that obviously would mean a lot. Now, there is a big push. There's two kind of big pushes, right? And I think ultimately each day that goes by that we have the politicians kind of float that they have these files on all of these people in front of the public and they don't release them, that's when we get what's the right word for that? We get a feeling of, I can't trust you. And I think ultimately Clinton Russell said it best when he penned it, that if you think that you can float this stuff in front of the conspiracy theorists, tinfoil hat wearing people such as myself, I would qualify as that too, for those who were not going to be on your side for much longer. Now, Chris is saying they're going to release the Epstein Files late on Friday. I also did see another post from Tony Saruga. I believe that to be satire. I have not seen an official confirmation from anyone yet. Now, what we did get in the main story here is the fact that a whistleblower has spoken and whistleblown to the journalist by the name of Michael Schellenberger. Now, Michael Schellenberger is somebody who I'm not that familiar with. He is a former liberal, but that was the journalist who confirmed it was blown to him. Now, he is a former liberal. He's actually co-founded the Breakthrough Institute back in 2003 with Ted Nordhaus, or Nordhaus. Don't really know how you pronounce that. But that's the story so far. And so the story is that not only were we not getting them, we initially got a task force to handle them for us. We also got Pam Bondi saying they were on her desk, and it seems that we keep getting these pushed out. Now, with that, though, although I'm not too familiar with Michael Schellenberger himself, what I do know is that he was a former liberal, now turned kind of maybe normie is the best way to describe him, ultimately saying things such as like being very anti-critical, or critical of, rather, of the wokeism. He's known for the Breakthrough Institute for things like eco-modernism, climate and energy, agriculture. So it's not really his wheelhouse to begin with anyways, for what he normally writes about too. Now, currently, I'm not sure what he's worked on recently. I just know a bit of history about him. I wanted to make sure I could research him before we did go do the show. So I have heard his name before. Now, I'm not sure if anybody in chat is familiar with anything that he's written before, but he is listed as a journalist / author. So it seems that he does go pretty deep on energy stuff. But if you focus on the story at hand and you take everything into consideration, I do believe that each day that the trust wanes. Now, we did even get from Kash Patel himself that in 24 hours of being confirmed, he promised the American people that he would release the unredacted file list to the American people. And well, that's exactly what we haven't gotten yet. I think Harrison Smith was also right to point out that when they assigned the task force, there was also a question of whether it was through unserious or a question of they're clearly going to at least doctor them in some form before they let the American people digest what's on these files. I would also like to point out, too, that this actually gives a lot of cannon fodder to the left to say the only reason this is taking so long must be because Trump must be involved on the Epstein files.
Of course.
There's a lot of moving parts with this, too. Now, I personally take it as a slight because I would have expected we would get it day one. But as you know, not even just the Epstein files, but also the JFK files, the RFK files, 9/11 files, and I could be missing one, the MLK files, and I think there's a couple more. They weren't actually put in executive order to be released, but rather a plan to be released. And that's what the executive order was for. It was meant to put out a presentation plan in which how we could present these things to people. Ultimately, I think overwhelmingly, if this is true, and they are permanently deleting files related to Epstein, there's going to come a point in which either society just simply forgets and we just go, okay, well, whoever wasn't named, I guess we'll just never look into it. Or society holds people to the most extreme, or the government rather, to the most extreme accountability measure. And they say, you release this now immediately, or now you have started off your administration within the first month in a position of which we cannot trust you, because the most important thing a lot of people were looking forward to, especially with these FBI confirmations, you're not touching. And if I was to go even one step further to give it a bit of more digest, the long-running theory with the Epstein files in particular is that Jeffrey Epstein was doing this blackmail operation as an agent for Mossad. And then if you do look at the two people who we've placed in the FBI now, with the actual director of the FBI, Kash Patel, and now Deputy Director Dan Bongino, Ian Carroll rightly pointed out, both of these guys have verbally given their virtue signal towards Israel, which Mossad is the intelligence operation that is ran down and by Israel. And even Dan Bongino himself, someone who I've lost respect to for over this last period of time, even wouldn't go so far as to name the country. He more rather simply said, well, we know Epstein was working for somebody in the Middle East. And Ian Carroll put out a really good video that kind of broke that down. It was about 8 minutes long. But that's essentially where we are with the Epstein files. I think a lot of people are losing trust pretty quickly, especially those who are ready to get something within a few hours of FBI Kash Patel being put in place and confirmed.
Right. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Are you able to hear? Can you hear me? Okay. All right.
Yep.
Good. I can't hear myself now through the headset, so it's a little awkward, but it's better than the echo.
Word.
Let's see here. All right, I'm gonna share this, and then if my computer starts going super slow, I'm gonna have you share your screen.
Yeah, definitely. I'm ready.
Okay. I'm trying to load it up here, and then I'll move it over to my other computer. I thought I was gonna use Brave for this, but I can't.
No, you're fine. I think one of the things I forgot.
I can't because I opened the outline on the on Google. I opened the outline on Google, so it's going to open everything on Google. So,
word.
All right, sorry. Go ahead. I'm working through this. Sorry, guys. I did a little test run earlier, but still, wasn't any way to work out the kinks until I actually just did it.
Word. Your camera looks like it froze up on you, so it might be a bit of a struggle to share all that. But I did just want to mention too that there is supposedly, now House actually pointed this out to me too, and I've now seen it a couple of times as well, that supposedly somebody early on has actually leaked a document that contains the names on it. In fact, not even just the document of a black book per se, but also I think a 2,000-page report that involves all of the multiple plaintiffs and people who are on file. Now, you can find that on specific different telegrams, but obviously without any kind of hard confirmation on that, there's really no way to know what the actual truth is or whether it was actually constructed. Someone put in a chat GPT, got something lined up like that too. So there is something floating out there as well. Ryan Dawson in particular to be named as somebody who does have a bit floating on his profile as well. I think Hal said if there's an initial page that he has and the rest is behind a paywall. Although I do find that to be a bit odd. I think, no matter what, even if I was a big, person with a lot of followers like that, I would just drop it if I had it. Who cares what the consequence would be? But just to give a couple more updates on what's going on with the story there, and then where you may be able to find information that you should take with a massive grain of salt, that it could also be false, but it is also floating out there in space.
But I can tell that you're still going, so if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. You hear me? I think World got timed out there. Tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and actually add this and present it. See if I can't add it right now. I'll share my screen. Hopefully we didn't lose World, because I think this might actually end the stream if we lose World. So we'll see what happens, guys. Well, hopefully World will come back to us. I actually have no controls over anything right now. It's all in World's hands, so hopefully he gets back. Okay. Well, it looks like we lost World. Than I am on screen here. No, so I wish I could share stuff over to you, but that's the basis of it too. I think a lot of what we're seeing as well is people are putting pressure on the individuals. Okay, World City's still here. Okay. We're also seeing pressure being put on Anna Polina Luna, which is, obviously who's heading the task force now, who I think ultimately has a lot of ties to Ben Shapiro's favorite country. That also throws a lot of this into question here. And I think secondly, too, and Pam Bondi, I almost said her name wrong. Pam Bondi as well said she had it on her desk. Yeah, Chris says Dance Atlas. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm so used to doing a solo show. It's no problem to me. Pam Bondi having it on her desk. What are you supposed to do with that? I mean, when you say you have this sitting on your desk, why then does it take hours when the promises were unredacted by Kash Patel, who has now been confirmed for I think 4 or 5 days now? What is taking so long? Like, if it was me, I would be clocking in overtime just to be like, whatever it takes to get this put out. This is what we need to be putting out. Now, I think that calls into question then, ultimately, if you have multiple politicians saying, yeah, we've got it, we see it, it's here, what are they doing to it then? Right? Because you guys know the same as me. It takes about 10 seconds I can pull up my file on the internet, go, all right, upload file. Even if it's like 300 megabits, like, okay, 2 seconds later, uploaded, send, push. So to me, it's just hard to buy the excuse of like, oh, there's like all these specific reasons, and like they're investigating things. It's like, just drop it. I mean, just let the American people go through it, look through it, let it operate as if it's like the Twitter files. I truly struggle to understand personally what these reasons would be. And I think most people are struggling to have these reasons. I think now we're getting to a point where there's no kind of 4D chess to be being played. There's all these crazy reasons. I can't, for one, think of an actual argument to the opposite of why we are waiting still to this point. Now, think of what she will. I don't think that means that Trump himself is involved or on these lists. I do think that it does have to do with something that they are trying to prevent a pushback. And I think that pushback and backlash would be because, especially in this current political environment we have going, at least among the political wing, there has been a lot of pushback, especially given what's going on in the Middle East. And I think they are trying to find the easiest and most soft way to land it so that people don't go crazy if they do see the kind of correlations that I have come to see. Now, we also have to read a couple comments here. He's like, TNT is saying Biden had it for years. I don't see a few weeks in more trusted hands as a threat. Well, that's the reality, though, too. I mean, Biden had never promised he was going to release the files. Um, I don't. Now, with that though, I would say I think that there was never any guarantee in the first place that there wasn't already files that had been deleted. So I will give you that. Especially think even being in the hands of Biden when the deep state had full control and he's simply just a dead corporeal form of something. That who's to say that we, even if we got the redacted form of it or the unredacted form, that in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, that they weren't actively trying to eliminate things off of that. That even if we got the unredacted form in 24 hours, as promised, who's to say what it would be? Now, it looks like that Tiggs Palmer is saying there's no version of the Epstein list that doesn't get released without it being watered way down. That's the kind of conclusion I think I've reached and most people have reached, especially waiting this long. They're clearly trying to do as much as possible to, you know, figure out a way they can release that. Now, I think the main question, though, again, as what I just said, falls back to why. What is that reason then? And then if the reason is to protect all of these people who should otherwise be facing criminal prosecution for their involvement on it or the things that have been taken there, well, then why am I supposed to trust that anything else that comes out of this administration's mouth if they're doing things to protect people? I mean, to me, the reality of which the fact that January 6th protesters were in prison for longer than anyone who is listed on that black book, that is a kind of society that can't sustain itself. It certainly is a society that you can't trust the administration at all. You can't trust. At what point are you supposed to be able to then go, yeah, we should definitely listen to what this administration says, but their morality ends where society may we kind of bend the rules because justice isn't blind around here. We kind of make sure that we protect these these specific people here. I mean, that's to me that just certainly doesn't fly. I mean, our country's already at the brink of shambles economically, specifically when you look at the way inflation's been ran and the kind of consequences we've had to deal with since we've been having to go back from that hard inflation tax we had by the money printer go burr during COVID. To me, and I personally do value, and I don't know about everyone else here, but I would just value understanding the truth more than anything at this point. And TAT says, that's my point. The copy Pam has might not even be 1% accurate at this point. And that's true. I think that there is a valid point to that. Because I definitely would not trust the Biden admin and those who are at the top of that list with a pencil. Like I doubt they could even return me a number 2 pencil back without having some kind of damage to it or without risking that it may have been used in some kind of sexual activity. And so it's again, I think it's just overall it's just another kind of like demoralizing figure. I think it is immediately a very kind of momentum killer for everything we got going on, because for me personally there's only so much kind of like woo yeah clapping I'll do for like different kind of fraud that should have never existed in the first place, because after a certain point you're going to get to a position where you're like, okay, yeah, everyone's committing fraud, but like, okay, now what's the next thing we can do that's going to be very meaningful? And now you compare that with the fact that it looks like we're not getting mass deportations, at least not from the federal government. You go, man, dude, can we at least get something? Like, that's great. And even because some of the ideas they floated with what to do with the money they're saving and people aren't even going to agree on. So it's an overall kind of momentum killer with that as well. Tiggs Palmer saying Germany's rounding up citizens for memes. How long till that shit floats across the pond? They've already done it to a couple of Americans. They have. I think most particularly and most popularly, what ended up occurring with that was, I can't remember the guy's name now, but he actually had a meme about call this number in regards to like with Hillary Clinton, I believe. So this has been back in like maybe pre-2016. I think there's been a couple other cases since then, but the one I can most remember specifically is the one that he had made a meme about call this number, vote by calling this number for Hillary Clinton. And it was like a fake number. It would I don't know if it redirected you or not. That guy actually did a couple episodes on Timcast, I believe. I'm unsure how his case went, but he definitely did ultimately get involved and caught up with that. And there were charges pressed against him. Now we do have Andrea saying that does make you think, can we trust it after everything? And then, well, that's the truth. That's the reality. I think ultimately it does matter if you want to rebuild society in a more meaningful manner, if you look forward with a future kind of vision. If we continually stay in this stasis of never being able to even trust a percentage of the government, and only kind of have to rely on the fact that people will do things because they're getting cheered to do things. That's not a good system to be in. I think ultimately that doesn't course correct from the fact that we are an empire crumbling. And I say that when you look forward with who's going to be on the bench beyond Donald Trump. There's obviously a lot of people on the right who definitely aren't going to vote for JD Vance, who did vote for Trump this time around. And they do so for different various reasons with that as well. So to me, it just kind of sucks that you would kill all this momentum when it felt like there's so much we could have accomplished in such a short time. And why not get ahead of it in the first couple months of your term and then have the rest of that term to be able to handle it out? Now, Chris is saying keep the pressure on the administration. I think that's correct. I think ultimately 9mm SMG makes great points when he says, asking the Trump admin for things that they never had said is like, that's kind of out of bounds. Obviously, you can ask for them, but the most hard position you can take is say, hey, we're going to hold you to the promises you made, just like how you should with every other politician. Now, if we're going to sit here and talk about the left and the Democrats and all what these guys do and then never do it, or say and never do it, then we definitely need to make sure we're holding Trump to that same standard. Otherwise, what separates us from being in the cult when we're told that we'll get one thing and it's never delivered, right? That's kind of like this, like that circle jerk that's formed where, well, I just like him because it's Trump and he says like mean things about the left. And then it's like, really, it's like it's harder to find the difference between what makes these groups up. So we want to be the people who go, no, we voted you in. We're not actually, we don't adhere to this occult personality. We didn't vote for you because we just like you, man. Why do we do kind of like you, but we also voted for you because we want you to do the things you said you would do. Now, I think that goes for Trump and Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, all of these people. Now, Dan Bongino actually kind of a different story because he was just kind of selected rather. But all these other people who we knew were coming in and kind of the promises being made by them to come in and be confirmed, well, we would expect that to get done. I think anything less than that, they put themselves in the same kind of aiming reticle of any other politician who said one thing and then did another. But it looks like we got Worrell back. Looks like I carried it a good bit. So hopefully you're good now, brother.
I made it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So we're good. We're good now.
Okay, awesome.
Once I tried to connect that page, it was just too much and everything failed. I had to restart not the whole computer, thankfully, but shut everything down on my Google and Brave. Okay, so anyways.
Yeah, well, you give me your take on this. I talked for like an hour.
Right. I wasn't able to listen to like the last minute of what you said, to be honest. But so kind of set me back up a little bit. My apology, everybody. I know this is awesome content.
No, it's good. So basically for me, to sum up everything, I'm rather disappointed. And I think ultimately this puts us in a position where we need to hold the people in the administration accountable for the promises that they made.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think Cassius is the most one in light, especially about this, because he promised the files in 24 hours from being confirmed. Now, obviously, this was also ran for the other executive orders to be push these out. We're going to get this and this and this. And when you don't get what you're promised, well, then I think it puts you in that same kind of light as any other politician. You ran on something to get us to vote for you. Now you're not coming through. And I think that's the framing where it's definitely okay, no matter how much you may like the people, might not even be a red versus blue. It's as a citizen and you are working for the people, you're not doing what we voted for you to do. Otherwise, get out. Why did I vote for you in the first place? That's kind of like the my frame that I was setting up there.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, and this is, I'm trying to think, like, I had this profound take going through my head a little bit before the show started, and now I like completely lost it. I was like, man, I should write this down. It's funny, but now I'm just like drawing a complete blank. Right. But I mean, I feel like I do like the point that you mentioned, going back a little bit, where you were talking about how with TNT, how the Biden administration had it for so long and had whatever control over it, and now Trump's team has it, and trusting it in these hands versus the hands before, and everything like that. And I thought those were pretty good points. But I don't know, like, I feel like they should have released the list pretty much right off the bat, And is that kind of what you were saying as far as like doing what we elected you to do, or is it, you were talking about Trump as
Yeah.
far as that goes, or
Yeah, I guess if I even had like a more like kind of like broader point, which is this goes back to like, having a future vision for the country, right? And like what we want for it as a people. And if the whole idea to make America great again, well, we would want to return to some of these values that the country was founded on. But we can only get to that point if the majority of people actually trust that the government has at least some level of vested interest
right?
in who the people are. And you can't do that when it, on the surface at least, appears that they're doing everything they can to protect the elites and those who would be involved and the otherwise powerful on this list, not operating on the tenet of blind justice. That's going to erode. And in fact, in the future, you're going to set it up for 4 years down the road. People trust nothing. Now it's harder to kind of operate a system with any amount of authority to actually kind of enact things in a very powerful and profound way. Because if everybody kind of takes away on a normal kind of level that politicians are just a bunch of liars, well, then it doesn't set up for a bountiful kind of return. If anyone does kind of get in that position and would have good policies, now it's just like it makes it even harder to believe, especially with Trump being the greatest kind of differing example we've gotten in Lord knows how long. But if he's going to do the same thing that everyone else did, which was disappoint everybody on what's being done, especially in that kind of regard, right? We're talking like the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory regard. It just certainly kind of puts us in a very unsustainable way. And I think ultimately it continues us and maybe just pushes out the collapse of the empire.
Yeah. I think Andrea has a good comment here and says, yeah, if the vote counts in the future, it's scary to think after Trump, they'll take control again, and that's definitely a big threat. It's crazy. Like, I also liked what Tix Bomber said too. It's kind of a red herring at this point. He corrected himself and said heron, but I've always known it as herring, so I don't know. I'm with you on that one, Tix. Dangle the carrot. The carrot just, if you dangle the carrot long enough, the carrot just disappears. Yeah, and that's kind of what I feel like has happened here with this thing, and it's almost like it's a distraction from maybe the Diddy list, or I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if you were like even more specific, right? Let's think about it from the fact that we'll go very specific. Somebody like Bill Gates, right? That's someone whose name's been floated many times as being involved on that list, right?
Right.
But this guy is in control of how much money. He's a part of how many foundations. He's getting this NGO and this nonprofit to do this and this.
Right.
And so if that's somebody who has done something that is well deserving of being put behind bars and has been malaligned against the interests of the American people, that's something that the American people deserve to know. And otherwise, again, more commonly or more commonsensically, shouldn't it all have any amount of influence over what's happening, especially because he probably may, regarding with this in the theory, that he's been involved in a blackmail ring doing things that otherwise would put you and I, or brother or sister, in prison for the rest of our lives. And that's the kind of standard that kind of needs to be destroyed, that the elites kind of have a different set of rules for them, right? Rules for thee,
Right.
but not for me.
And they definitely do. And, I think it's kind of, we don't put it above Biden. We call it the Biden crime family for a reason. And just hypothetical, what if Joe Biden was, this is kind of what I wondered about, what I was wondering about earlier, and I was racking my brain. But like, it's assumed that Epstein was like taking this information for a blackmail, a control of not political, but just the elites, period, right? And what I'm thinking and what I'm hypothesizing is that, say you're the FBI and you seize all this material. It reminds me of Barack Obama and these folks on the left. That is, I don't know if it was Obama, actually, now that I say it out loud. I read it was Obama earlier in a comment. So I know some Democrats in the past said never waste a good crisis, never let a good crisis go to waste or whatever, right?
Right.
And so they got this crisis, and it's, wow, we just got all this dirt on all these elites. If we go after them, it's going to have an economic hit, most likely, right? And you remember a lot of the CEOs across the country from all these big companies kind of all resigned in mass within the same, quarter of a year, a couple months, whatever.
Right.
And what was that, just hypothetically, the FBI, who got all this leverage on all these new people, suddenly using it, right? Instead of just turning over the list, they said, look, we're not going to turn over the list, but now you work for us, to all these people that were working for Epstein before, right?
Right.
And so now they can't put the list out because the FBI is basically using it, or whomever, right? FBI, CIA, Biden crime family, whatever it is, using it to leverage for, self-enrichment, power, control. Essentially the same thing that Epstein was using them to do, but now they're just serving a different agenda or whatever. And it's like, so
well, I think there's truth in that. That makes me think, say we take it for a super positive here, and Trump did go in with full intention of doing that, but maybe ultimately he was advised, or was picture slid across his desk, as the famous Tim Pool example, and was told, well, you either play ball, or you're going to find your way on your backside pretty soon. So maybe the power just changes hands. And I think then that raises the even greater question, which is, does that mean then that the deep state is entirely undefeatable by the means of an election process? And so if the deep state can't be defeated by no matter who you elect and put in there, I think then that raises a question of just, how willing should one person actually be when it comes to actually participating and contributing into society, as well as adhering to what the authority says to do. Because if it becomes commonplace for a person to believe, well, everyone involved at the top and all these rules come from people who do things to kids, it's like, I don't really care what they say. And if there's no kind of like inherent trust in that authority, I mean, then you're going to get a portion of people who do follow the rules, who just constantly get taken advantage of. Meanwhile, those who decide otherwise, not to do anything, or find every which way to break the rules and get away with it, I mean, that is not good for society. And I think that's what the real question would be. And it's like, if that's the take, then how do you kind of tell these people who are accelerationists, and I said this earlier in Discord, it's hard for me not to want to be an accelerationist, because I do kind of tend towards that black pill, which is the elections have increasingly felt like they've meant nothing to me, or rather like they are really not influential by any means, or that they're easily influenced by whatever means, what you want to say, ballot harvesting, etc. And if that's the case, and if deep state can't be defeated by who you vote at the ballot box, then what ways do you defeat the deep state? And that, I think, is an even bigger question that people need to ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know if anybody really knows exactly what to do, because a lot of that power resides within the people that run industry. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of, unless you're prepared as a society to fight this in a manner that which you're self-sustaining and well prepared, because once they cut you off from the banks, once they cut you off from shopping, essentially, you're going to have a real hard time doing anything, let alone fighting them, right? And so it would come from a very prepared type of position, well coordinated, and it's almost seems far beyond the reach of anything that we could do at this phase. But I mean, I guess be spectacle to speculate that to be spectacles, to be some glasses, no, to be a little bit skeptical. Okay, sorry, be a little positive or whatever on that.
Yeah.
On that.
Well, I think it gives rise, I think, credibility rather. And we're looking a little bit further down the road, but say, what if this turns out to be this ridiculous spectacle where we don't get the list at all? Say it just continues to be dangled in front of people, and then maybe ultimately they settle on some kind of compromise where they're like, well, we will name a couple people on here, but here's why we actually can't give you guys the list. And
Yeah.
maybe it's in some form of like, well, we think the American people, we can't, you can't handle the truth, to quote the famous quote there.
Yeah. Jack Nicholson.
Right.
Jack
And then I think,
Nicholson.
well, I think that gives rise to the revolutionary ideology. I think people will then kind of turn away from the very, practical means of which, elections really kind of what elections are is elections operate as a proxy for violence. That's what's been kind of replaced in society here. Now, we all kind of decided as a society with a social contract that instead of fighting each other, we would allow the best ideas to win based on a secret ballot. And we're going to go and pick and decide who we think are the best ones to hold those ideologies and do those things for us as a government. Well, society, I think, begins to fail. If you, one, you lose trust in your elections, but two, it becomes increasingly clear that if both sides of who is on that ballot box in the first place both operate under the same guise and pressure, which would be the deep state,
Right.
then now you've removed the reason for people to even vote in the first place, and now that proxy disappears. And that's a frightening aspect to think, in which if you continue down that path, then people will then proceed to believe in the idea in which violence will now become the thing that must be necessary, otherwise change will never occur. And I got to say too, not to say that that's entirely the wrong position to take either, although I don't want it to be the position. You have to look at the most prime example in front of our faces, which is the founding fathers. Now, a little bit different. Obviously, they weren't voting in elections, but it got to a point in which the founding fathers and those who supported them and the revolutionaries were like, I'm not being represented. There's nothing I can do right now that will allow me to be represented, and I'm just simply being taken advantage of. And for them, it was finally the straw that breaks the camel's back is a ridiculous tax on tea. And then that, like dominoes fall, all these events take place, and eventually they rally behind it, and people decide, yeah, the only way out of this is we have to physically fight the powers that be. Now
Right.
that's like what we should try to avoid. And I think that's why you have to try every measure and exhaust every option before then, to avoid all of those really negative externalities. But at this current rate, I mean, if you keep dropping trust and you kill the momentum with people who believed in your movement based on some of these things you promised us, I mean, it's hard not to tell people who feel otherwise and say, hey, yeah, the system definitely believes in you and it's definitely trusts the American people. Here's the free marketplace of ideas. It's just not there, and it's hard to even make someone, believe into it.
Right. Well, I think a lot of the Democrat people, the sheep, I think they really grant a lot of power to the White House. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's I've said it for a while. It's like they call Trump a dictator, like it's a bad thing, but then they cry for a dictator and a king. Just not Trump. You know what I mean?
Right.
Trump's being the dictator and the king. They don't want that, but they definitely want one to push their ideology and ideas and rules and basically culture.
Yeah.
But
Well, TNT said, in the future, how to avoid the questions. I'm thinking maybe all government docs get put on a blockchain, then when declassified, they are intact or at least can be investigated by nerds. Now, I think ultimately, right, that should be the way it's done already. There should be a public access form that every person can immediately go to. It's like, whatever website.gov.
right.
Obviously, outside of things that may need clearance related to national security.
For
But I
real.
think that these kind of public records, especially if they're a year, 2 year, 3 years old, they should be public record. You should be able to, continue to look at these things and go at it and say, hey, if I'm looking at this and this is just about a policy or what this guy, got in place, he's a public worker. That stuff should be public knowledge. Now, I do hold that kind of caveat for national security, and maybe there are a few other things I'm not thinking of currently that obviously that gets held back, and maybe someone who's in a position of the DNI, like Tulsi Gabbard, they have to clear what those go through, publish them on the government website, and that way people do have free access to what was being put in place. And I do see that super chat. Thank you very much, Native Patriot. He said,
Yeah,
keep
man.
at it,
Thanks.
gents. Much love.
Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate that. Our friend Native Patriot in the house. We got to get together, do some more work together. I really enjoyed having you on that last time.
Yes,
if you want
sir.
us to come over and collaborate with some of your guys over on the Patriot Prayer Network, I think I'm saying that right. Just let me know. You know how to get a hold of me. You got my number. Got me on X and all that good stuff. But thanks a lot, man. It's cool that you're here.
Yes, sir.
You can find him over La Native Patriot, I believe, on X as well. But to your to your point, I'm sorry, I'm like so scatterbrained trying to work everything here. It's
You're good.
so weird being on this old laptop. Everything just looks so different, and it's throwing me off big time. We kind of settle into a nice groove, and now it's like not the same.
No, you're good, man.
But I can't disagree with what you're saying. Pretty much, I mean, I just, I don't want to sound too black-pilled and just hopeless, but because there are some good people, right? I mean, I think a lot of people that end up, an elite or whatever, they started off. It's just like the Pizza Hut story, the two guys making pizzas in their garage, and then they grew into Pizza Hut, right? There's still some good people, I think, out there where, they'll be willing to help out in manners that they can. But I liked what Tix Bomber said earlier. He said the only way the deep state loses is from turmoil from within the deep state. That made me think of like Squid Games and how they got like their elites up there betting and just living their own world and lost their complete like their senses, right? Like they can't even feel unless they do crazy stuff. And it's hard to fathom. It's hard to imagine like what it would take to fight against or stop or whatever somebody like that. But
Yeah, well, and I think Tex brings up a couple other good points too. With the fact that if you do take that black pill and you decide ultimately, it's not worth the risk to life and the life and family and other consequences that come with it, you ultimately do settle on the reality of you just hoping that it just ends at some point. But I think House even brings up an even better point, and I think it's one that is tied with a lot of things, more so than what he was even laying out here. Young men can't afford homes, and they're being told to work at Panda Express. The Tinder is dry.
right.
Now you take that into effect, then you also look at the disparticipation of marriage and the dating economy. There are a lot of reasons for men to live for nothing, or rather see it that way, and not even try, especially as it seems like the latter continually gets pulled up on them with things such as hypergamy, and the rather kind of delusional standards being put upon them before they can even be entertained to entering in a marriage contract and things of that nature too. Not to say it's impossible, but that's at least what you are getting propagandized with. Now, I do think it's a bit of both. I do think it's obviously a lot harder now, especially nowadays with what feminism has wrought us, as well as the current liberal kind of environment we're in. But I also don't think it's entirely too bleak for a lot of men. As long as you do work out, get your S together, and be a Christ-loving man with that kind of truth facing forward, there are things you can still do. But there are obviously still outliers where you can do all the right things and still end up in a bad position. But what you have a lot of men who have no families, and then they foresee there's actually little to no chance they ever could attain a family. Well, now you are going to have a lot of very, very easily radicalized men who would do a lot of things they otherwise wouldn't, because now they're not tethered by having a family. Now, I think, most men who are married can probably speak to this. When they're married and now have their children, they're definitely way less likely to take the risks they otherwise would have, were they single with nothing tethering them down to a reality, because they got simply nothing to lose. And so if you put a large percentage of the male population in that position where it's seemingly hopeless with nothing to lose, you're going to have a lot of very kind of Islamic tendencies, right? You're going to see a lot of men who would do crazy stuff because they've been pushed so hard up against the wall, and they're living in a society in which they feel like is entirely unfit for them. You're going to get some crazy action that way. And that only is exactly what House said. It's dry tinder. A lot of things ready at the, just at a moment's notice can take off. And maybe you see some kind of movement nobody was expecting. And next thing you know, violence jumps through the roof.
Right. And then, to House's point there as well, that these young men that are taking the jobs at Panda Express, they're not given 40 hours a week, so they're being cut off from their full benefits a lot of times. And additionally, they oh man, I'm losing my train of thought. Bro, what's the other thing? They oh yeah, that's what causes folks on the left to come out here and start demanding, $20 an hour minimum wage and stuff like that. It's like, well, if we can't get it on, the traditional way, then we need to be overpaid, essentially, for the jobs that we are doing. And it's kind of weird in the fast food industry, because they could afford to pay people a lot more than they do. That's for sure. I mean, just go work at any fast food place during the lunch hour from noon to 1:00 p.m. and from like 5:15 to 7:00 in the evening, and you'll understand how much money they're making. It's a lot, but and I'm not trying to make some like argument that minimum wage should be lower or higher, but I do see how those companies could afford to pay some of the lower end workers, but more. But a lot of those people also, like, I don't know if they really they even deserve it. Some of the people that I worked with back in the day, it was like, you just don't do the job right, and so like,
right.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, credit to House again for this. I'm glad I actually spoke with him a little bit in the Discord before I came on live. But I think the minimum wage is another example where you look at it where the solution is wrong, right? The problem is they're identifying the problem, which is right, which is the purchasing power of the dollars they're being paid for is meaningless. And it makes many of these jobs that they get into, especially when you have people like Chris Rufo and others that are in like that mainstream conservative brief saying, well, you can just go be a manager at Panda Express. Well, the purchasing power of these dollars is meaningless, right? It gets worse day in and day out, especially when we constantly send all of these ridiculous aid packages out. We print money like crazy, but the left has the wrong solution, which is they're just retards, and they think like, well, just make everyone pay me more, without realizing like what kind of economic effect that has, and ultimately you'll get to the same problem in a matter of time. But that's where I think you do get this kind of dichotomy there, where the left is the very emotional argument ones. They're the ones who have to be spoken to on an emotional appeal level, but they typically are getting the right feel, right? Like their heart's in the right place of these dollars are meaningless, but when they want a solution, they want to force it by a means of which it's going to just hurt other people, or it's only going to have a very limited time effect.
Right.
Now, the same thing happens with the reality of what has been happening, which is when certain places in the country go to like $20 an hour, well, it's a matter of time before the nearby areas then have to compete. It's like a domino effect. So say if you're on the border of California and say, I can't even think of a state nearby, maybe Nevada, but say California goes to $20 an hour minimum wage and Nevada sticks at 15. Well, then what's going to happen? The people who are on the border of Nevada are going to find it more worthwhile to get the same job, whether it's Panda Express here in Nevada or Panda Express in California. They'll drive the extra 5 minutes down the road to go work at the one across the border at California. Right. So then it kind of then forces those places nearby to compete. And so then you're going to get lobbying communities there in Nevada that are like, man, I can't hire anybody because everyone else can go work down the street for 20 an hour. Right. But we can't compete with that. And so that's ultimately where you get kind of these really rough situations. But ultimately, the left still does identify the right solutions, or not the right solutions, but the right problems. Right? The pain point is right. It's what they want to do with that pain point is what generally is wrong.
Yeah, and it's funny is I would assume that the way Nevada would handle that situation, once the lobbyists got the word up the chain to the leaders of Nevada, is they would then up their state tax. I'm not sure if they have state taxes, but hypothetically, they would tax their own workers from within their state higher to balance out that. So like, look, if you live in Nevada and you're going to go over to California to work because California is offering more, we're going to charge you higher state tax whenever you go and file over in the other state or whatever. Because, I grew up in a border community, and so there's a lot of people crossing over from Kansas and into Missouri and vice versa. And so when you go file your state tax at the end of the year, both states have state taxes. If you work in one and live in the other, you have to pay the taxes for the other state, and you might still have some taxes to pay for your own state. And so then they'll
Right.
up it. So then, like, on the back end, that worker who went to make $20 an hour and made $5 an hour more is still breaking even, or maybe only doing a little bit better, possibly even doing worse than if they would just work for 15 in their own state. But the problem is that doesn't solve the issue is that doesn't actually solve the problem, right? It just generates like more tax dollars. It's like a penalty. It's not really like an incentive or whatever. And so that's kind of, you know, that self-fulfilling, you know, Democrat throw more money at a problem prophecy and have no regards for the actual people that you're trying to take care of, or the long-term ramifications of, you know, running companies out of business because you're making minimum wage not affordable to the business. You know what I mean? However it works.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, and House laying out this out too in this comment here, you know, saying there's an argument from the right that we should raise minimum wage and stop subsidizing them through food stamps and Obamacare, but not the mainstream right. There's also, you know, this is also another form of accelerationism, you know, maybe that not what he's saying specifically, but in the form of when you view it like with the Industrial Revolution. So say everyone on the right does kind of give in and they go, okay, you know what, we're making it $20 an hour. That's good. Every state's got to do $20 an hour. Well, then what does that do then for businesses? Well, some businesses definitely won't be able to survive. They're not going to be able to have the mode and mean of operations to be able to handle that with their current staffing. They either have to downsize, or what we're seeing with a lot of fast food places and those jobs that are typically being ones that called out for the raise are outsourcing their labor to AI and different kiosks and machines. Most people probably have an idea of when they got into the recently, whether it's McDonald's or Taco Bell, or I can't think of any of the other recent ones. You don't even order from a person anymore unless you're going to the drive-through. I mean, you just go up to an actual touch screen. So you never talk to anybody anymore. You just push your buttons on a screen. So
Nowadays,
then in
they're
turn,
incentivizing people to order on the app before they even get there.
right, exactly.
So you
So now,
come the screen on your phone instead of the screen at
yeah,
the place.
and it makes it easy. But the end result of that too is then finding even more kind of innovation down the road, where these places can go, wait a minute, we don't even need this person to do this. We can actually do it this way, and now we don't even need to hire these 3 people who are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it then forces the revolution, and I think that actually begs the question: the longer we go down this road, if AI continually outpaces, and that's what technology does, it grows exponentially.
Right.
If AI continually outpaces what people are able to do in terms of like living wage, and we start getting to a point where now it's, you know, 11% unemployment, 19% unemployment, 34% unemployment, and that starts happening rapidly with people where jobs can get outsourced to AI, well, then now what do? Now do you get to a point of you're getting UBI involved? We're going the Andrew Yang route, where people just have to at least be given some kind of subsidy, because it's just a known thing that there are just less jobs overall, given what happened with technology and how things advance like that. And those are questions that I don't even know if we're prepared to answer. But I think you would see a kind of very renaissanceical, Renaissance might be a bad way, because Renaissance kind of like, you know, wasn't be as violent. I think this will be violent. But like the AI industrial revolution, you know, what happens then when you have mass exodus of people who aren't, you know, don't want to work but can work but have no skill to take a position that's in the top 60 or 50% of jobs that are available, and now they're kind of left to their own devices, and that continues down that path that we were saying, where people will get radicalized because they have nothing to live for and no chances to even operate. Looks like I lost Worrell again. Looks like we'll give him a second. Hopefully he can load back in. This brother's internet is struggling. Got to get that Ethernet cable. But in the meantime, I'll read some of these comments. Wait for Worrell here. Oh, we got 2 Worrells now. we got double Worrells. That's funny. Hopefully we didn't lose your sound, though. I don't know if I can hear you right now.
I don't know. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You sound very... I can't make you out.
Yeah, I can hear you. You sound good to me.
Okay. So, yeah, that sucks. I gotta... I gotta listen to you on the phone to hear you. Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
Did you have a Ethernet cable? Is yours like plugged in, hardwired?
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's the
Just old.
computer just being slow. Dang
Just
it, man.
pushing
This
it to its
sucks.
limits right now.
I can't hear you unless I mute myself and play it on the stream, and it is delayed. I'm
Oh,
hoping
word.
that
Okay.
my computer catches back up. I refreshed a second ago. Man,
Okay, word. Should I start using like hand symbols and talk like by using my hands?
you could use sign language, but I don't understand it.
We'll operate with that. I'll give it I'll know I'm on a delay. I was just gonna say I'll just read some of these comments, but in the meantime, hopefully it catches up there. But one of these ones from TNT, or not TNT, forgive me, I'll get to that one in a second. From Tix Bomber. He says they try to pretend these things were all the way back in post-World War II times. No MFers. It was all good until banks started handing out toxic home loans and then faced zero repercussions after being bailed out while giving themselves bonuses. Banking and usury has had a ridiculous effect on our society, especially the way that it's been done, compound interest, etc. Alex throwing at bank signs. That's funny.
Okay, I can hear you now, so I'm back.
Okay,
Sorry about
perfect.
that, you guys.
No, all good. Well, TNT here with that comment. It says 30 years ago, he made $13 in a fab shop. I was able to rent a 2-bedroom house in an awesome small town. Wife didn't work, had a baby, and saved $1,000 a month for a down payment on a house. And that is entirely out of every single young man's reach right now at this point. It's not even a question.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm working as a senior life insurance advisor there where I'm about ready to start making 6 figures, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to afford a house. Like that's where we are right now with how little the dollar means anything. You know, the purchasing power is non-existent.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And then, that's kind of like a contributing factor of why we decided to go and get this new car or whatever. It's just like everything's going to just continue to get more and more expensive, and so we jumped on the 0% 0% down, zero interest rate. You know what I mean? And so it's just like it's going to be one of the best scenarios we're going to see for this type of car in a long time. Might as well just take it and and
Right.
over the past 8 years, cash in the hand has just gotten less and less valuable. And so,
Right. Well, less of it's even physically available. Everybody
yeah,
uses their phone to pay for things now. It's all exists in like the other sphere. You know, you're not even like touching it anymore. The numbers be continually, even like, with physically touching them, they begin to mean very much less because you just really don't have a good idea of what $20 feels like. Back in the past, when you'd go to the store with $30 in your pocket, you felt it a bit more because now you had a 20 to 10, and now I only have $7. And so it's like, now I know I definitely have way less than what I did before because you could just feel it and see it, and you had it on you at all times.
yeah, that's true. I remember that as a kid, like spending birthday money or something like that. It was just like, I really want that, but it hurts to spend it. You know what I mean?
Right.
What's up, Donnie? I see Donnie is has shown up. Donnie in the house. So where's Atlas today? Tell me you can
Yeah.
see Atlas, please.
Yeah, I wore this Don rag.
Oh, okay, I get
Wore
it.
this do-rag
Camouflage.
just for Donnie.
Camouflage. I'm so used to technical difficulties tonight that I thought that your camera was out. He's talking about your camouflage. Golly. All right.
That's
Forget
funny.
who I'm talking to. It's Donnie over here.
No, right? No, you
I
can't see me, man.
It's funny. My little brother used to have a shirt that was camouflaged, and it said, "You don't know it, but I'm standing right in front of you." It always made me laugh.
I'm getting ready to go hunting, man.
It made me laugh.
So
You have the
nothing
outline,
brows up. Yeah, you can't even see my brows right now. It keeps coming. It's settling down. Yeah, they're hiding.
Yeah. Well, by the way, you have the outline. I had to close down everything besides StreamYard. So
yeah. Let's move on to the next thing. Actually, we spent a good amount of time on the Epstein stuff here.
Yeah. Pretty much, I think everybody's on the same page. Just to wrap it up, that once we do get anything, if we do get it, it's still going to be highly suspect of if it's the full list. And nobody's ever going to ask the question or look into what did the FBI have against these people over the past 4 or 5-ish years, ever since they've had this information in their hands. And we've known about this stuff for a long time. I can't remember the woman news lady that had the breakdown live, like not live on air, but like with the hot mic and camera in front going. And she was like, we had all this stuff. We had Epstein. We had, and she ran through this whole list of people. And she's like, and they killed that story and didn't let us. Do you remember that? Do you remember who that woman was? Or do you remember that instance where she's just
No.
like, okay, she's talking about the Epstein story. And she's like, we had this years ago and they made us bury it. It's like, wouldn't let us bring it to air. We had the Clintons, we had the Royals, we had blah, blah, blah. I think is what it was. So it's been a while, but she ran through a whole list of stuff. And it was just like, you could tell this woman was pissed that now this information is coming out, and they weren't the ones that broke the story, essentially, or whatever. And so anyways, I think, like I was saying, just to round that out, I think everybody pretty much agrees that once we do get it, we don't even know if we really have it. We'll all probably agree that we don't really have it. It's just whoever they decided to throw to the wolves, people that didn't play ball.
Right. Yeah. The what's the right word for that? The useless idiots, I guess. The ones that's like, yeah, they don't mean anything, this administration. Yeah, guys, they're definitely on the list. Look at these people.
Okay, TNT says it was Julie K. Brown in 2018. Okay, thanks, Tix. Or TNT. Thank you. Appreciate that, TNT. By the way, TNT, wasn't it you that was asking about the Blackberry Dr. Pepper last week? I went ahead and got some. It actually came today. I ordered it from Walmart. I opened it before the show, but I haven't tried it yet, so give it a try.
Over here, like,
You can taste the blackberry. I got wild blackberries that grow in the backyard. It's actually pretty cool. A lot rather thorny to pick them, but
yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know if it'll be one of my go-tos, but I do like it. Glad I didn't waste $6 or $7 on the 12-pack.
Right.
Like, oh, I don't like that. Now it's just gonna sit there forever. I'll definitely finish it. It's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, I have to drink Diet Pop. That's it. I can't
Naturally
do any of the sugar stuff.
I should do diet stuff, but I'm a sugar fiend. I ate 3 donuts already today.
Oh, really? Yeah. I can do physical sugar.
I got some. It was like, all right, this is my lunch.
Yeah, but yeah, for the next topic, yeah, we do have technologies, live taste tests. Yeah, tier list. Put it on your tier list.
We should have made that my goal. No, normally have the super chat goal. Did
Donnie just say he loves a good DP? Did you seriously say that in my chat right now? Well, anyways.
Well, we're going to have to talk about that in Discord later there, Donnie. Which, by the way, we do have a Discord, you guys. The link is in the description of both videos, for both on Atlas's channel and mine. I'd like to see you guys join.
Yeah, definitely join the Discord.
Hermit Rob said they can't release the files on day one. Going to take a minute to strategize. Yeah, I mean, that's projecting goodwill and intentions. Just saying that they're strategizing. I just, I tend to agree. It's definitely some strategy going on with it too, but I just can't help but wonder the longer they take, why and who are they removing off of it and things like that. It's just my natural thought process. And I hate to, be so like, I don't know if that's black pilled or just negative about it or whatever you want to call it, but it's just.
Well, I think to me, it's pretty
it's
simple.
Like a hacky sack that's been kicked around for a long time. And then finally it's going to go to you. And when it does, that's when it hits the public or whatever. And I don't know.
Yeah, looks like it's to me I think it's very simple. It's like this. Um
I do trust them. I trust them much more than I trust the Biden regime. Hermit Rob said, "Sounds like dude is looking for an excuse not to trust Cash, Pam, and Dan." No, I do trust them. That's the thing, but they didn't have it till just recently, and they're still holding on to it for too long. It's just, unfortunate. Like, what are they doing with it? Hopefully, they end up being fully transparent about the whole situation. And here's what was going on with day one. But Pam Bondi told us that it was on her desk, what, a week ago now, maybe 5 days ago, and
yeah.
what's taking so long? I don't know. I think it's a fair question to ask, and I don't. A few hours after being confirmed is naive. Well, it's on Pam Bondi's desk. She's been confirmed for weeks now.
Listen,
So
I'm just holding Cash Patel to his own words. He said he'd have the unredacted Epstein files to the American people in 24 hours. Now, if you said that because you you meant it is one thing and you're not doing it, yeah, you should be held accountable to the promises that you give. I think to me personally, I think the easiest way for me to understand this is the strategy that's behind it is how can I not say Ben Shapiro's favorite country 40 times while I'm listing off everyone involved in this operation that occurred.
right,
If that's what you were asking me, that would be what I would pin it. That's how
that
I think is who's being protected here.
yeah, that, and then what I mentioned earlier about, is it more valuable to them to leverage these people themselves? Because let's be real, the people that are on this
Right.
list are all compromised. They're compromised by Epstein, potentially exploited by the Biden regime, and then now it's like, is it actually more valuable, because we don't know who these people are,
Right.
to keep them under your control with this threat, or do they just become a complete wild card once their name is put out there, and then you lose that control of this person, and you don't know what they're going to do? So I don't know. I'm just trying to explore all the options, but um, Herbert said starts running into weeks, then that's a different story. Yeah, I mean it is, but still, I'm just eager to get it out there, and once it does come out, I'm wondering if it's the full list. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah. Jamie says it's been a few weeks now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that, let's see here. The executive order for releasing those files related to 9/11, JFK, RFK, MLK, and the Epstein was signed on day one, which would have been January 21st, correct?
Right. And Pam Bondi's been in there for a while. She's the one that says she had it on her desk. So
Right.
that's where the buck stopped last I knew.
Well, that's who I trust the least out of that group. Um, Pam Bondi, I'll never forget the fact when I looked up a little bit about her, knowing what her kind of track record was there in Florida. She's very, very pro gun control. Um, she actually had firsthand involvement in the Trayvon Martin case that kind of set off a lot of what we got from the Black Lives Matter stuff. And that was because she made sure to assign another attorney to the case when the original attorney said, "There's not enough here. I don't want to press this case." She made sure she found somebody else to go and press against George Zimmerman. So she's somebody who, for one reason or another, I think even if you could come to the conclusion that she just wants to protect her career and wanted to do things that she would see meaningfully to advance her career, she's who I trust the least. She's who I know about the least. She's done like the least kind of media tours. At least Cash Patel has made a lot of tours on podcasts and spoken openly on long platforms to be questioned by people. Dan Bongino, for one, runs his own show, so he's kind of in the open and vulnerable on that too.
Right.
So those two I can at least trust a bit more because they at least are willing to be open with the public and engage with that stuff. But Pam Bondi is someone who I wouldn't pin on being on the same level of trustworthy as those other two guys.
Right. And I think that's a valid assessment. And even to add to the Dan Bongino factor is dude's making millions of dollars a year with this podcast. He's going to sacrifice. He's taking he's honoring what he feels like is his duty and commitment over money. And now granted, it's maybe easier to do once you have a couple $1,000,000 in the bank, but still, nobody just gives up that type of lifestyle. I mean, take it to sports or whatever. Say John Gruden, for example, he went into broadcasting, and I think he would be dumb to go back into coaching just because broadcasters work, 1/100th as hard as a head coach does for a franchise, and he probably gets paid 10 times as much. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
but if he were to go back into coaching, it would be because he loves it. He's passionate about it. And that's how I kind of see it. Feels like a duty to, or whatever. That's what he really enjoys. And that's how I see Dan Bongino is he's definitely given up a lot, which that was Trump the first time around as well. Trump the second time, even as well to count as well, because I mean, look, he's in his latter years, who knows? And so giving up 4 years, committing 4 years when you're in your mid 80s is quite the commitment with your finest days, right?
Right.
And so yeah, I definitely trust those two guys, Cash and Dan, especially Dan, a lot more than I trust Pam. But I do trust Pam Bondi. She's done nothing but good stuff so far. But the longer she waits for this, longer these files sit on her desk, I'm just gonna have to ask and kind of wonder why. I'm gonna hope for the best, and I'm looking forward to seeing these numbers, or not these numbers, these names come out. I think they should follow up with the Diddy list right away. And if people are out here doing the things that we think they were doing, they shouldn't be allowed to continue running these big companies or being free, essentially.
Yeah.
And then let's see, what did I miss? Let's see. Sorry, I missed a lot of chat there. Holy crap. Just want to make sure I'm not skipping over any of Hermit Rob stuff that we want to talk about and go back and forth, because I think we're 99, maybe 95% on the same side and agreeing. It's just the 5% that we're disagreeing about.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, because I give Trump a pass. He did say when he ran that he would have the Ukraine war taken care of within 24 hours, or possibly even before he was inaugurated, and that hasn't happened. I understand there are lots of moving pieces, like with Elon Musk sending out the email saying respond to this email within 24 hours with 5 things you did last week. I think he had an understanding that wasn't an actual realistic expectation of people who are dealing with classified information, maybe people that were on, vacation. Like, the left has made a lot of excuses. Some of it seems valid, but that's with like removing the more real scenario, which is that it is a moving chessboard essentially, and that Elon was fully aware that not everybody is going to be able to respond to that email. But I remember when he replaced a bunch of people from it at Twitter, when he converted over to X, I'm sure he probably did something similar to that. Got a whole list of emails that didn't respond, and then that's a starting point. That's a red flag account. That's person account, whatever. And that's where you start with. It doesn't mean they immediately get fired, but then you go and find out, is this even a real person? Is this really, or is this somebody taking a check under a social security number? Is this really a person that's working? Is this really, what we think it is? Because we're out here paying paychecks to people, and we don't even know if these people are working or what.
Are you really 300 years old?
Right. And so then he has that starting point, whereas some people respond and it's not as good as the others. And then you can even move on to there, because there's some people who are like, well, I got 1,000 things I can tell you I did last week. And there's other people that are going to stretch it, and then there's other people that are going to be smart asses or whatever. But the people that don't respond is a starting spot. And, it was within a day. Well, it was within a few hours that he did that and responded to Trump, which is efficiency, right? Public transparency, being efficient, everything, which I love about it. And then it turns into, don't respond to this email, respond to your immediate supervisor, who then we're going to collaborate with me, or whatever that scenario turned into with Elon. But it still got a lot of people, gave him a starting place, and it's, he maneuvers from there. It's not like he was like, this is how I'm going to beat you. Ha 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 ha. This is step one of how I'm going to, trim the fat and beat you, essentially.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think there are some healthy questions about, Dan Bongino as well. I think a lot of people kind of have a bit of an iffy opinion on him too. If I remember right, even as well, there was like a weird kind of tiff he had about anonymous accounts not too long ago, though he ultimately did backtrack on what he was saying about them. He kind of had like this argument, I think, and I can't remember who it was with or what it was even about, but I do remember him making a statement that he kind of walked back a little bit about people need to not be anonymous. And I know, for a lot of people, I think if they put their name and face on some of the stuff they were saying, they wouldn't have jobs when they woke up tomorrow, because that's just the kind of environment that we live in. So I think there is an ultimate protection for people to remain anonymous. So it's kind of like a wild thing for a Fed to say, right? It's like, of course, the Fed is saying that, or the guy who used to be a federal agent there. But for me, it's like I can only trust somebody as far as I can throw them when they say things like our greatest ally, or they talk about Ukraine as being like this great thing that we got to protect. And so with that, though, too, what you mentioned in the Ukraine stuff, I think what's been a weird recent development, although I didn't add it into the outline because I didn't get a chance to look into it too much, regarding the 50% claim to the mineral deposits. And somehow like that's going to put us back into a position in which we will have to defend Ukraine. Something along those lines. Maybe House or Donnie or Tix, anyone in the chat can correct me on that. But I did see that getting floating around. It's almost as if it's kind of like we're backtracking on that even. And so it's like, well, wait a minute, who cares about this conflict here? We don't care about peace. If Ukraine's going to give us 50% of their mineral deposits, like, well, now we do have to defend them, don't we, guys? And so I thought that was kind of an odd story, but at least that's kind of what I took away from what I'd seen about it so far.
Right.
So again, it's like, I would have just liked to have seen more. We had really good momentum, and it looks like it's kind of dying. But we can move on to the next story, though. I know we've been killing this topic for a minute.
Yeah, we will. Just in 1 second. I wanted to respond to Hermit Crab. Sorry, dude. Hermit Rob. For all we know, the list has been altered and full of the left's political enemies that don't belong on the list. That's true, too. It's been in Biden's hands for 4 years. It's been in a lefty-ran Democrat FBI, for longer than that. So, yeah, that's an extremely valid reason. And maybe that's why it's taken so long, is because they're literally going through the list name by name and trying to do a little bit of due diligence before they release this list and say this is it, and then end up getting sued by a bunch of people who are like, no, that's actually not us. How did we get it on this list? And you know what I mean? So do some front end fact checking and stuff like that. That's a good that's a good observation, because I was looking at it as the left has had it for 4 years ish, and they could be removing names from it, but I didn't think of it as people adding names to it. That's definitely a good comment, and I appreciate you adding to the conversation.
Yeah, I get that. I guess my always under my understanding was that there was a black book, like a physical black book that was kept. That would literally be physical. So I think that would be a bit harder and easier to see.
Right. Like you'd almost have to do a DNA test to see if Epstein's DNA is on the book you're looking at, almost even, because they can go and make a new one, or like a whole fabricated one, even like hypothetically.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you're right. It is hard lists, and probably the flight logs are probably the most concrete. But a flight log is a little different than, people that are on the list or on videotape, and which if there's concrete evidence like that, videotapes themselves, then, those people are going to be busted too. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to this next one.
Yeah. So this is the fact that Gavin Newsom came out of nowhere today, and he announced that he's going to launch a podcast. Now, in one of these couple opening things here, we can go ahead and play this. Only about a minute long, but it is from Gavin Newsom here. We'll just have that on screen. So he says he's launching a new podcast. We need to change the conversation. He's so slimy, man. I'm talking directly with people I disagree with, people I look up to, and you, the listeners. I do think for at least in the initial bit, people will tune in to see what it is. But if it is the same kind of garbage that's very curated, people will probably tune out. So we'll see how realistic these conversations are if he does have people who he disagrees with. Because people love debate. So I think like if that is the kind of modality he goes with, it may be more popular than people would expect it would be. But we'll go ahead and let him explain it here, and we'll go ahead and play his promo for it, just so people got an idea of what we're looking at here.
Guy's such a nerd.
Sounds okay too.
We need to change the conversation. And that's why I'm launching a new podcast.
He's
and this
cool.
is going to be anything but the ordinary politician podcast. I'm going to be talking to people directly that I disagree with, as well as people I look up to. But more important than anything else, I'll be talking directly with you, the listener. Real conversations. What's going on with the cost of eggs? What are the impacts, real impacts to you around tariffs? What power does an executive order really have? And what's really going on inside of Doge? Look, there's an onslaught of information that we take in. So let's take it to the sources without the typical political mumbo jumbo. In the first few weeks, we're going to be sitting down with some of the biggest leaders and architects in the mega movement. This is Gavin Newsom.
Who's going to go on the Gavin Newsom show?
We need
to have to watch to see who these people are that can't wait to go on Gavin Newsom's show and help boost him with his start. Get out of here, dude.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm actually pretty curious who it would be. And Gavin Newsom's
going to be Cenk Uygur. It's going to be Sink. He's like, I'm mega now, guys. Come on.
Right. It'll be like Cenk Uygur. Man, who's another good one like that? Yeah, we're gonna have like Destiny on. Like,
right.
Gonna do the typical like tour there. Be like, yeah, we definitely totally disagree. And it's like, guys, you're both these blue rats, man. Like, yeah, disagree maybe on like one thing.
Right. So crazy. So this dude, I wonder what. So is it gonna be a YouTube channel? I assume. Gosh, I hope.
So it looks like at the end there, if I go back to it, head on screen. So it looks like iHeartRadio, Spotify, podcast, Pandora, Amazon Music. So it looks like it won't be video. I mean, I would imagine he would want to put it on video,
right?
Just given the fact that he did that promo like that too. But maybe not. Maybe it will be audio only. But I thought like a good question here is from, I don't even know who this Justine Bateman girl is. But
hey,
she
thanks,
says
Rob.
that you. Oh, nice. Yeah, congratulations. Thank you.
Appreciate that, bud.
But he says that you have time to host a podcast is remarkable. Have you already left office? Is there a post-governorship memoir being written right now as well? If you're done with that position, please step aside so we can actually get a governor in that seat. Which it does raise a question, right? Of like, in a state that seemingly needs as much help as it can get, it can't even contain wildfires or properly have water operating. What are you doing on a podcast? Right, it's seemingly that. I think that's a good question. Maybe more of a kind of a right winger kind of zing to that. Maybe there is time to take care of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a good point.
That is, because the dude's still governor for probably 2 years. I know the next governor, he's either the midterms in 2 years or in 4 years, but I don't think he re-ran this last 2024 election. I like what Six Bomber said. Hear me out. Newsom podcast first guest, Jesse Lee Peterson.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious. I love Jesse Lee Peterson. Some of the stuff whenever he gets one-on-one with folks is just so funny.
Why are you gay?
I know. That's not him, but it's like him almost. Like
right.
He's like, beta. First thing he's gonna do in the intro. Why are you a beta? And why do you hate God? And
yeah. Right. It's like, you think like a woman. I think what you mean to say is like, I'm in touch with my emotional side. No. You think like a woman. Like, he's got some great moments.
It is.
Of course, Krasenstein's excited.
Oh, Rob said his pops was in the U.S. Senate for 33 years. Grew up on the Hill. Little background. That's cool. Yeah, man. I don't know if you're a Discord person, but we do have a Discord where we kind of keep these conversations going and stuff. If you're be interested in joining, the link is in the description. That goes for everybody as well.
Yeah. Should be in my description as well too. I know that you probably just copy and pasted the same one, but should be in our description to join.
Yeah, we've been trying to do the same description for the shows lately.
But yeah, all the common takes on this is obviously
pops load most of them. Sounds based. I don't say based that often, but sometimes it just fits.
Right. You got to imagine too. I mean, this is the take I would have as well. As a normal, regular person, and I'm someone who's very kind of non-prone to getting involved with the occult personality. Like at a moment's notice, I'll drop my support for somebody if they're not doing what I want. You know, I'm kind of not even a black pill, but a very cynical. And so it's very growing up in this environment too. I will be the first. Like I was already very kind of even like on the fence with Trump going in the first place because I'm a very, I'm a very staunch Christian nationalist. So I'm obviously already radical to most people too. So yeah, for me, it's like the moment I see a politician who I barely supported in the first place do something that makes me go, WTF, I'm rooting for him to get out of there. I'm like, boot him, dude, like get out. Like because I just want change. I don't want the kind of marginal incrementalism. I know it's already going to be ideological to want those things and push those things far out. But ultimately, that's kind of where I sit, right? And so if we all kind of always settled for just the most basic baby steps of getting things done, we would barely go anywhere over a long period of time. And I think that's just not fitting to sustain things when we do have so many things going on. So I'm a bit more, ideologically inclined over the practical or pragmatic stance most people take. But
I
again,
like
props to your
Valentina's.
dad for working there.
Yeah, said he wasn't a politician. But I'd like what Valentina Gomez said right there. And nobody gives a fuck about your new podcast. People lost their homes in LA because you're stupid and put a bunch of fire lesbians in charge. California needs a new governor, not another shitty podcast.
Real.
That's so funny. I got into it with my my Democrat buddy a little bit today. It's not like we have good conversations. You guys know I'm an advocate for having the hard conversations with your friends. Most people say you shouldn't talk politics with your friends, but to me, if you can't talk politics with your friends and your family, even if you disagree, who the hell can you talk to? So we had these conversations, and he was talking crap on Elon and Doge, and he's taking the hard, Democrat Party stance over these federal park workers are losing their jobs and this and that. And he brought up who's going to rake the millions of acres of forest now. And it's like, wait, nobody said, like, they're so sensationalist, such sensationalists, right? Nobody's been saying ever that we need to rake millions of acres of forest. We're talking about if you want to build, houses in, residential areas in places that are prone to arid conditions, drought, and fires, you take care of the area where the fires and things can most directly affect the homes. Nobody's talking about millions of acres. We're talking about the woods right behind the house. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about common sense planning, and
right.
It's just so funny how he took it to raking millions of acres. It's just
how insane was it that lady?
And they weren't doing it before with all the park workers, anyways. What are you talking about?
Well, dude, I'll never forget the fact when George Prime, G Prime 95, made that comic book of when that lady was like, so, you're saying that, like, you can't, you wouldn't be able to carry, like, my husband, like, if you were, like, or, yeah, that's what she said. You wouldn't be able to carry my husband if he was in a wildfire. And she was like, well, your husband shouldn't have been in there in the first place.
He shouldn't have been in there.
What are you talking about?
If a dumb fat lesbian can't carry you out of your house if it's on fire, you shouldn't have been standing there.
Right. It's just so retarded. And and I think Seven Braun nails it, because it just gets to a point where you see this stuff and you go, it's just so fake and gay.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so fake and gay.
Yeah, shouldn't have gotten himself in that situation. Thank you, Tix Bomber. I like to say shouldn't have been standing there.
Yeah.
I always steal that line from Happy Gilmore. It always made me laugh.
Yeah, what a beta male, dude. I actually automatically, my sixth sense is knowing when a fire is about to start in a home. Right. If you don't have that sixth sense, dude, are you even a man? Are you even an alpha male? Like, dude, what?
I inspect everything, like every plug-in outlet around the house, like constantly. So I know, but it's just so dumb. It's such an unreasonable expectation or thing to say.
Yeah, right. That's what you get for having a lesbian in there.
TNT says fake and gay, so just gay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fake is the part when everyone goes like, wow, this woman can definitely do her job. The gay part is like, then wow, it's a gay woman doing her job. It's like, dude, everyone does it. fake song and dance where you look at like a super out of shape lesbian. She should have been a part of a biker gang 4 years ago, and go, yeah, dude, definitely. Like you're definitely the person for the job for fire chief of California, dude. It's like miss me with that, dude. Like who are all the guys? Who are all like the strong 6-foot guys who like work their lives as other firefighters who've
They
got
don't
passed
exist in
over for that?
California. I mean, the assumption is they just don't exist in California, right?
Yeah, you could be right about that too. They all moved to Idaho and maybe not Oregon.
They all moved to
Idaho or other
Austin.
countries or other states. I mean,
Yeah, isn't it Austin where everybody's fleeing to? Turning to Austin, Texas.
yeah, Austin.
Right.
That's where
Well,
Joe
we
Rogan
disappeared.
went, I believe.
Yeah, that is. That was funny. When you leaned back, you totally disappeared.
Did I? When I like did this?
Yeah.
Yeah, to fix my mic.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
So the next thing I had here, right? So that's just essentially like, yeah, Gavin Newsom's being really gay in public. But I think the next thing we have a good bit to talk about, you know, while we are getting like 25 minutes left here.
Yeah.
Is put this on screen here again. Make it work.
Crazy.
There we go.
It's saying I'm live on X, but I don't have anybody watching on X. Interesting. Usually that's the biggest part of the crowd.
Word. Okay. I wonder if it like the connectivity issues like made it so people dropped or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, you're good.
But
So
this is crazy.
Right. Yeah. The fact that Trump's going to release a $5 million, or I hoped it was satire when I first saw it, but it's the reality that $5 million gold card for citizenship. And so just as it says there that Trump announced that there will be a gold card program, which is going to replace the EB-5 visa, where foreigners can purchase what he describes as an elite route to U.S. citizenship for $5 million. The program aims to attract high net worth individuals to invest in and contribute economically to the U.S., with the administration projecting significant financial returns to reduce the national deficit, as summarized by Grok.
Yeah.
Now, I hate the fact that I'm agreeing with Brian Krasestein here, but I do.
Right,
think
that's what I'm saying.
This is just retarded, dude. I don't get it. I mean, any scammer who could have pumped and dumped on a crypto scheme can now buy citizenship and come over here and start doing that to us. And I think it was House Again who I was talking about in the Discord there, which is the fact that what we're getting here is this seemingly care more about the GDP and how much can America produce and make money wise, not in a term of like, what are we manufacturing? Not in a term of like, what's everyone's family able to do with their purchasing power of the dollars they make, but in the purest sense of it, which is how much money overall can the nation just generate? And in that sense, it's like, well, now we are competing with other countries and we're throwing aside quality of life. We're throwing aside job market. We're throwing aside all of these things. And so to me, it's not America first. It's just like, to me, it's just not what we want, not what we need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, forgive me for being a broken record, but I'm to the point where we can cut off all immigration. And that includes this too, right? I'm including legal immigration and of course, illegal immigration. It's just time to turn the faucet off and, you know, fix everything we got going on here, or at least get it in a much better shape before we start doing things like this, especially. What this leads to is, and you might have this like in the outline, so I might be jumping the gun, but what this leads to is, I think it's called a serf class of Americans who all work for elite foreigners who bought their way into the country. So you have people that aren't elite and rich that were born in this country that all end up working for these people. And I'm sure there's details in there that I'm skipping because I kind of skimmed over that take earlier. It's not my take. And I totally agreed with it. And it's just like, that doesn't seem like the culture, this, you know, the vision of the culture that I want it to go in, which is more pro-Christian, being the norm. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think, you know, we got to look at it honestly here too. with the reality that there are, what's the right word for this? When we're looking at bringing in, especially high dollar value individuals who are used to getting their way, especially if we're bringing in, all of these $5 millionaire, 5 million, they'd have to have more, right? If your net worth is $5 million, you're not coming over because you're not going to sell everything that you have to have $0 by the time you make it to America. So we're looking, probably projecting a bit over that.
Right.
We have to look at the fact that what we do see here in America with the lack of assimilation, when it does come into legal immigration and the way that it's taken its form, now I'm not sure if nepotism is the right word, but maybe rather the in-group bias that we see, which is that those foreigners tend to revolve themselves and hire those from their own country of origin. They hire those that are more like them. And so it creates these kind of operating nuclei of when they do enter the workforce through the legal immigration by these means. It forces, and not rather forces, but it sets up this setting in which when they do get here, you do see along racial lines more than likely how people are being hired. And it is because they have that in-group bias. Now, this sets up things pretty poorly, especially the same way we got with the H-1B visa discussion, when we have all of these whistleblower guys from the tech department come out and they say, dude, I have this degree, I know how to code this, I can code this, I can code this. But because there are, specifically in tech, because there are so many, it's so dominated by Indians who have been getting so many of these visas over the years, like they all would prefer to hire themselves. It doesn't matter what my qualifications are. And so like they feel like they are on the outside of these jobs getting in. And then when you do look at it from the visa system, when they're contractually obligated to pay them a specific rate, what we saw from all of the people posting that on an average of like, I think 18%, but in some cases it was as high as like 50%, undercuts the wages of what we have here in America. Well, then why would you even want to hire an American? Because if you can get away with the fact that you can hire for somebody overseas for way less, and then they can bring in their own family, the whole thing again just doesn't speak to America first principles.
Right. I like how Tix Bomber was able to find a way to disagree with Brian Krasenstein in this, in that he says, I'm not buying that only 2 million people outside of the U.S. have 5+ million in net worth. That math ain't mathing. So he doesn't believe that 2 million people outside the U.S., let alone 10 million, which is what Brian Krasenstein said. But yeah, it's an interesting thought.
Let's see if anybody's had something to say about that. I do like the idea. What I would say is I do like the idea. So I would disagree with Brian Krasenstein here too. I do like the idea of generating enough money that we can overcome our national debt. I like that. But I think that the solution requires a vast hollowing out of a lot of people. And like to what you were saying with the surf class, I mean, you just bring in all these people, they're just going to overtake these jobs, right? If they have this much money, it would also go without saying that their job experience and their assets would put them in positions of higher status, if you will, to be hired and take over different positions and then open companies and buy property. And so then it just forces the people who have been struggling for so long to get to those positions. If you're bringing in, here's 2 more legal immigrants we're going to bring in, and we're going to have them pay to get in, which is that's like, I guess if you were to come in anyway, make them pay a lot of money to get here.
Right.
But ultimately, that goes to the argument of which legal immigration is actually somewhat worse, because based on what jobs and what positions they take from the American people. Now, it does, to me, when the illegals come in and they can only work under the table and they can only take on so much and they can only work like these really kind of odd jobs or do Uber or, work construction, it's like, well, then it's only certain areas that get affected really bad. But when you bring in the legal immigration at these higher levels, then all of the avenues are affected. And then all Americans are kind of forced to compete with people they otherwise shouldn't have been.
Right. And to your point, like these people they're not going to just pay 5 million to come over here without bringing, their wife, kids, parents, wife's parents, essentially. Right. You would think. So that's another factor. How does that all work out? Is it 5 million for the first person and 5 million for the last person or what? Right. But, sorry, I got a gnat going on. Had the windows open for a couple of days because this lovely Florida weather is fantastic. But I'm only mentioning that
Yep.
because everybody's talking about the weather and where they're from. But these people are going to come over here and open businesses, and there's only so much. Like, you think, oh, well, that's fine, just more businesses for us to shop at. But the problem is, people that are born here that are competing are going to essentially lose out to opportunities because you can only put so many. Just for instance, so many gas stations on so many corners in a town, right?
Right.
So if these people are buying their way into the country and then they go to a decent sized town, they take up like a corner of it, a little area, and then start getting all the permitting, which is going to be part of their package, right? Get all the zoning, the permitting for these places is essentially going to cut off people that are born in the country from the opportunity of building and permitting on those that same property. Whereas also, when I think about this, it's almost like a DEI type thing, where the foreign individual, which most of the time if people come to the country, they're foreign, whatever, will be prioritized because of the deal they have and the money they've spent to get that property, to get that permit, over somebody that's competing, trying to start a gas station on the corner across the street, right? You can only give out one. And so it's like, who do we give it to? Well, this person gave us $5 million to come into the country to start a business and this and that and that. And then all of a sudden it's like almost they're obligated to award that to that individual over the person that they're competing with. So it's just not it's not good on the whole. It's not good just across the board, really, and I'm not for any of these decisions being made by, our leaders who are supposed to protect us at all costs from foreign and domestic, whatever crime and invasion and takeover, essentially. And then here they are not protecting us and literally facilitating it for money. So
Well, think about the repercussions here too. Let's think about the bigger picture. Imagine floating this idea out when we can't get mass deportations, when we're actually so ashamed of how few people we are deporting who we were promised. Once again, another promise not being honored.
right.
And now you're floating out more legal immigration. It's like, who's in your ear right now? Or like, are you truly just like, you got in and like, who cares what the people voted for? People are putting all those memes where it's like, actually, I voted for that. Well, it's like, well, you know what I really wanted to vote for? Like, I voted for mass deportations more than anything else.
Yes.
Getting these people out to the point now where it's so public and it's so known that we're not getting it done, that Eric Prince from Blackwater is floating the fact that for $25 billion, he'll privatize it and he'll hire of an army of private citizens to help take care of this. Because it's clear that there's some disconnecting factor here where we're just either we lack the willpower, or for some reason or other, they're strategically not doing it. And I just find it harder and harder to buy. Many people, even the normal level conservatives, even some liberals who went and voted for Trump this time around, were like, dude, the border's not being protected. We need to get these people out of the country. It's just not happening. But now we're floating legal immigration. And Donnie's right. We don't need any more 7-Elevens. We don't need any more of them.
Right.
We don't need any more.
By my house, I got 3 pretty much on the same corner.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, to me, it's like, I really, really would like to get to a position where it becomes rare that I have to press 2 or 1 for English or Spanish when I'm calling a phone, when I'm trying to get a hold of somebody.
Right.
And that speaks again to the lack of, this forced assimilation, right? Or at least these kind of, utility measures of shame, and congratulations, right? Either which way side of that for people to assimilate, right? And we just don't have that. Not when the Department of Education does everything in its power to make people, a straight white men feel like they're the bottom of the barrel. They're inherently evil human beings. Denounce your whiteness, said the Indian. It's like, this stuff is, at a certain point, it's like we have to come to grips with it. Now, people will say, well, it's been some time. I mean, we're a month in and, we're doing less than what Biden did. I mean, that's insane. Like, right, to think that we're actually deporting less people than what Biden did. Like, that's insane to think about, because then it goes to, where is the willpower to get these things done, especially when it was number 1 or number 2 on people's list of what they wanted to get done. What was the most important thing to the American people?
Right. And unfortunately, I feel like Biden's government And Democrat, governed states really spent the last 4 years trying to make it so hard for the next Republican to come in here and start start deporting people. And so maybe there's a lot of red tape to clear before you can just start doing it. And hopefully they get that red. I'm speculating because I don't understand why they wouldn't really want to be deporting. I mean, I feel like Tom Homan's like sole purpose in life right now is to deport people. And, I don't think that he's doing anything like dragging his feet or anything, So, I mean, maybe they're just trying to get through all the red tape. Once they clear it, then they can really just, as soon as they get these people, just send them out, you know what I mean? And not have to worry about, whatever's been put in place by this former regime. They did have 4 years to do whatever they wanted, right? And that's the problem too, was I feel like this is something that Trump needs to do, but we need to get the House, or we need to get Congress to pass a lot of these things that Trump is putting in presidential executive orders. We need the House to actually, or the Congress or whatever, to pass these things and make them like law. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think maybe that's kind of what they did on the other side to prevent this, because they saw it coming. They knew that the next Republican that came in, especially if it was Trump, was going to look to deport individuals.
Yeah, well, just go back to that comment you had highlighted a bit ago from House, right? A phrase that is in the Constitution for ourselves and our posterity. And I think that's one of the ideas that's being contested, rather, or at least for what its definition would be. You see Vivek running on it now constantly. Vivek was excised from Doge for making some of these retarded comments about the American people. But now he's continuing on this thing, and which is what we got the Sam Hyde video response for, which is this continual kind of forced acceptance that America's people doesn't mean anything, right? Like, we're not a nation of people. We're not a nation of individuals. We're not a nation of history or a heritage. That we're just an idea. That America is just an idea. And anybody who thinks like an American is an American. And that's just simply just not true. Every other place on this earth, every other country on this earth is a physical place. There is a tie to the people who were born there. It makes a part of you. You are your home person. That's why people could, they were born in Alabama, they'll go and live in Oregon for 40 years. But when they go to get buried and they write their living will, they say, hey, go and take me back to Alabama. I want to be buried where I was born from. Because there is a unique and innate connection to the actual homeland that you're born on. But this push that is any person can just come here and just magically just be an American is insane, because
that's crazy.
You reverse that, right? And you go, so then why is nowhere else America? Why is it then that it's only here, right? If everywhere else was just it's just an idea, then it's like, then why isn't China America? Right? If everyone's dying to get in here, well, you would think that everywhere else would just be dying to figure out what America got right, because if it's just this idea you can adopt. But that's simply just not the case. There is a strong tie with the Christian principles, the Christian values, as well as just very basic, simple things of what makes up a civilized society that we have that third world countries do not. Now, there's a number of reasons that you can have there, but that's simply what it is. That is just a very simple point to be made, right? And that's why you don't see other countries operating like that, right? Why do you think that India can't become America, even though they have like 5 times our population? I mean, well, you could look at it very simple of just what their culture and customs are, right? I don't think you can have an Americanized society when you see some of the street food and your culture practices this religion of worshiping cows and cow poop. It's not, that doesn't make for a society of what America is, right? But we can't have these hard conversations because people they clutch their pearls and they go, no, every person's exactly the same. No, actually, and it's like, I'm sorry. That's not true. And now I'll sound like the radical here too, but as a Christian nationalist, I sit here and I go, yeah, I do believe that Christianity is superior to Hinduism. I do believe that Christianity is superior to Islam. I do believe Christianity, so on and so forth. The same way I would look at the American way of life. I think, yeah, the American way of life is superior to the way that China has child slave labor. I do think American way of life is superior to having Indian street food and worshiping cow poop. I do, and that, and again, so on and so forth. But to just say that is like, you have to be willing to just not be called a racist and say the things that you really believe in, you know, and that's the reality. And then on the inside, what we get is a lot of, liberal culture is like, hate America, America's the oppressors, and that kind of Marxist parasitical nature of making all the children who have emotional ties to things view things from oppressor and oppressed. And if that's the only mind frame you have, and you make it so easy to go, yeah, look at the guy, he's rich, and look how, don't you notice how they're all white, all the white men run this country, and like, that detaches and debases people from the history of America. Well, of course they're all white. This is a white nation. It's been that way. It was founded by white people. Of course it would stand to recognize that if you had over a long period of time, the majority of people who in this country would make up the majority of those in the positions of power. And it's just the reality that people just refuse to kind of talk about because, oh, you might sound like a racist.
Right.
You got to move past it and not care about it.
Right. And I'm seeing comments talking about they won't assimilate, and Six Bomber says they worship a book of demons and covet cows. You ever see, by the way, have you ever seen those guys walking by and the cow goes pee and they just like cup the pee and start like putting it on their face and stuff? It's so nasty.
Yeah.
Put it in their hair, slick their hair back. Oh man. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, we've referred to this many times on the show. And I think this is a vital point. So we'll reiterate it, that this country was founded on Christian principles. And when you allow people to pay $5 million to come in and import their, to Tix Bomber's point, their worship of a book of demons and coveting cows, which cows and chickens are like our main source of protein in this country. It's counterculture. But they're not out here incentivizing, supposedly China has a huge Christian population, but they're not out here incentivizing Christians to move to this country. Like I would be way more in agreement with some of this type of thinking if they were, like, look, we're a Christian nation, and if you love Jesus and you're feeling persecuted in your country, then you can seek asylum here or something like that, because you're going to assimilate to, essentially loving the same God that we do, that we build the foundation of our laws around and our culture around. It would grow the culture in the right direction for the most part. I mean, of course you're assuming these people are all good intended and stuff like that, but you just don't see anything like that. You know what I mean? And it's literally promoting the exact opposite, which I just can't get behind. Like I said, I'd be willing to entertain a mass immigration or an immigration type of program that was moving Christians in, but
right. I mean, to that point, I think, think about last episode we had, not Monday, but last time we aired on Saturday, with Kash Patel swearing on the Baghdadi Gavad or whatever it's called. And it's like, there was nobody in the room to say like, brother, like, I'm sorry, like, could you at least, like, even if you don't mean it, man, like, can you at least swear on the book that
people aren't going to respect
my ancestors died and bled and sweat for? Like,
right.
You can go hold your hand on that book when we're done, dude. But like to dishonor it in such a way, like that book is the large and the reason why everyone here even had this Christ-breathed constitution that you're going to be working for in the first place.
Right.
And for 2 seconds, can you not try to be an Indian up here? Like that, like to me, it's like, where's that kind of energy from an American?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a shame because like we talked about on the last show, that was a totally a bad move. Like it was a tone deaf move. And it's like, just fake it for us at least. Like, you know what I mean? This is a public presentation and people are going to wonder why you don't have a Bible under your hand when you're swearing to uphold the Constitution that was founded in Christian principles. Like, it's just a tone deaf message that you're sending, an ignorant message, of disconnect that you're sending to not everybody, but to a lot of these people that, essentially voted for Trump, who were in turn voting for you because people knew that Kash Patel was potentially a cabinet appointee. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's the thing. Is like, if you want to care about assimilation, but then you don't expect it from the people holding the highest offices in your land, it's like, well, give it up. I mean, you're going to have to lead by example. That's the way things are done, right? It's like, well,
Right.
we need people to assimilate, but who cares if they're praying to cow gods at the FBI? What? It's like, then how do you expect that to then be a top-down led administration where that kind of everyone follows by example? We all kind of are on the same page here, and then expect you're allowed to do this at the highest office, but I'm going to tell you, you people at home need to start assimilated to Christian values. It's like it's just not going to work, and that's why
Right.
you should expect it from the people. And if anything, they work for us, so they should honor the values and the religion and in Christianity, for one, that got this entire nation born in the first place. And that's just the
Right.
reality of it.
Right. And I agree. Some people like Hermit Rob says, I don't care about that. And that's fine. I can see where people don't care about that. And I see how Jamie Erickson, her point, then why did I fight for his right for his religion? I get that too. I just feel like it was just on his, like from his way of thinking when, you have to understand everything is in the public eye in that type of position. I think it would have just been better off just faking it for us. You know what I mean? I still think Kash Patel is the best person to be leading the FBI right now. I'm super happy that he got confirmed, all that stuff. I just thought it was weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was a tone deaf, like, wait, maybe you're not connected with the people that got you here, as much as we thought you were, which is a problem. Projection in our country and in our religion is an issue. We like to project onto people how we are and what we believe people to be and seeing the good in people. And a lot of people don't deserve that. A lot of people are just trying to get what they can out of you, extract whatever they can and fool you. And they have no real principle other than get what I can when I can, get in where you fit in. Things, messages that we've seen in the hip hop culture, ironically, over the past 30 years.
Right. Well, to me, and
I'm not saying lie. I'm just saying send a better message. I wasn't saying like necessarily lie, because I don't know if Kash is like super religious anyways. You know what I mean? He doesn't project. He doesn't speak about his religion. I've never seen it, at least on any of the shows that he goes on or anything like that. So it would just be, I don't know. I mean, one of those things where I think it would just be a better message to just do it the traditional way. Some things are traditional within the country, and I don't know. I mean, I understand to each his own as well.
Well, I did want to say, because I did see Jamie mention that too. So yeah, I do appreciate your service. I do.
Yeah, 100%.
But this whole freedom of religion thing, and we could talk about, we could go circles around this because people want to argue with this the most, but I think it's just pretty well and proven. Even non-Christians recognize this, like Tim Pool. The freedom of religion did not mean like the freedom to worship cows and cow gods and the Hindu stuff. It never was meant to do that. Now, I'm somebody who's very highly critical. Right. And I'm very highly critical of like people like Charlie Kirk as well. Like I definitely don't see eye to eye on them too. But they run circles around people who have this kind of misnomer or this misconception of like what the freedom of religion was supposed to be, right? And it's like this Tim Pool, it's right, it's the fish in water. Everybody was Christian back then. That even like the freedom of religion was meant to be freedom of denomination. They wanted to ensure this kind of separation, that no denomination would try to claim superiority over one another, or someone would get into power and then abuse that to dominate the other denominations. Never meant anything about freedom to worship Islam, freedom to worship these cow gods, freedom to practice Confucianism. It was very, very explicitly clear, especially when you read the Federalist Papers as well and many other things with that two order documents. Mm-hmm. Very Christian nation. But with that, it makes me feel that, it's not hard to blame people who have that idea or that misconception, because that's what the DOE has been doing to children and everyone else since Lord knows how long, which is beat into people's brains all of these kind of false ideas, so that when they grow up, they're carrying water for things that were never real in the first place. But I did want to say we do appreciate your service, though.
Yeah, definitely. All of our veterans, we have a lot of people in chat that are veterans, and we appreciate you guys a lot. But Herman Rob said, I believe the man would give his life for Old Glory, and I do too. I 100% do. I think that Kash Patel is definitely the right guy for the job right now. And then him adding Dan Bongino made that even better to me. So we're definitely agree with that. Andrea is right. Everyone, make sure to remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and share. Hermit Rob, Tim is all over the place. And of course, TNT is right. Only commies don't like America first.
Right. Right. Exactly.
What's up, Magatron? I like the name. America
Megatron.
go.
That's funny.
You need some stars and stripes in your PFP though. I like it. You got it. You got it going in the right direction.
Yeah, did you hear that? World said he hates your profile picture. Change it immediately. Get out.
My profile picture is getting old. I've been wanting to change it, but I don't think I should at this point.
Jamie, to your point, there really is no better way to describe it outside of, well, you can look up a lot of the different papers to it too. House put one in the chat as well, the Mayflower Compact. But there's a 6-minute clip that we watched from Charlie Kirk, and I can't remember what pastor he was with as well, but he was actually questioned about this too. Now he got on, it was like a 6-minute clip, but he very specifically outlined like all of these reasons why, like what the freedom of religion was and what it actually was meant to do. Now he offers a much better explanation than probably I could provide in 6 minutes. But that's basically the foundation for it too. Another good source as well. Now, if you want primary sources, I don't have anything on hand I could give you right now. But other people you could trust outside of me too. Well, I say trust loosely. But there was a famous clip there with Tim Pool and Milo Yiannopoulos, where they also argued with Elad Eliyahu over what the freedom of religion meant, and just
the clip is on my channel.
Foundation.
Yeah, the clip's on my channel, by the way. But yeah, and the good thing is Jamie's in the Discord, so she wanted to follow up. We can follow up with that in the Discord as well and get a little bit more.
I can find those clips
in the weeds with that.
And then you did the video with Elad Eliyahu and Charlie Kirk, but Milo.
Yeah. There was more to it, but I condensed and cut out because they got on the topic and then they moved away from it and then they got back into it, and so I cut both of those clips together, and saves you about an hour and 30 minutes of watching those to get through it all. But yeah, definitely, you guys check that out if you're interested. Herman Rob said he can trace his family back to 1629. That's awesome.
Heat.
I don't know how far I could trace mine back to. I don't think nearly that far. That's really awesome.
House just said that he posted the Federalist Papers in Tinfoil Hat channel. So the text channel that says tinfoilhat.com, you can find the Federalist Papers there. Yeah. I believe Discord definitely has like a search feature too you can use. So you can probably just type in like link stuff and probably find it that way as well.
Dang, your grandma was tried and convicted of witchcraft in Salem in 1693. Dang.
Original feminism right there.
That's wild. Her husband, Dr. Toothacher. Was he a bad dentist? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have made that joke. Dr. Toothacher. Got her off. Wow, that's crazy.
Interesting. I am getting short on time though, so we'll have to bounce if you want to keep carrying it on.
No, we should wrap it up. I think we pretty much covered a couple good topics, and this computer is just so inadequate that I'm thankful that I'm able to actually get through the show, although the beginning was a little rough. But I don't think I could actually pull up the outline or even try to add anything or anything to the to stage anything. So
it's like not
I'll end up just with a frozen computer, a live stream that I can't end, and it might end up being a recipe for not success.
No, it's all good.
For destruction. But yeah, really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks to the chat. Like I say, always, we have one of the best chats. I think it's the best chat in YouTube. Getting to know a lot of you guys, especially the ones of you that are in Discord and stuff like that. I love the debates we have. I like that we can. And TNT sign up for his 4th month membership. Appreciate that.
Become a member and replace World's Potato.
Thanks for supporting the cause. For sure. Andrea is a member as well, and thank you for that. Thank you, Andrea. I saw that you re-upped. I think it was just a few days ago. You never do it like during the show, so I always forget to thank you for that. But regardless, I appreciate you guys for sharing a little support, sharing the love, all that good stuff. Let's see. What else do we got?
Smash the like button.
Yeah, smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe. I will let you guys know. Atlas and I are both broadcasting to our own individual channels. So if you're on America First TV, Do go check out Atlas Thugged. You might have to search Atlas Thugged channel in the search bar on YouTube. That'll pull up Atlas's channel. He's real close to 1,000 subscribers, and so if you guys would like to help him out, that's the best way that you can help us out.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I talked about being white and American. I'm wearing a do-rag on here. It's just a gag. I work for Donnie. I work for Donnie just to appease Donnie because I still had him in my my closet from my
culturally appropriating.
Yeah, my late Wigga phase.
Well, I mean, Beyonce won country music singer of the year, right? So I mean, it just is.
Yeah, we're trading.
There is no such thing as culture appropriation. We're all Americans. We got, you know.
Yeah, and yeah. Thank you, Hermit Rob. Man, I can't say words.
Yeah, man,
for being here. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, enjoyed the conversation.
Don't come back until you have money. You're actually going to get banned. We don't like brokies in this chat. We copy and mutate.
Right, for sure. So anyways, with that, just remind everybody to join the Discord. I didn't even put this one on Rumble tonight just because, like I said, the computer was so sketchy. I didn't even want to log into Rumble and add another page to the screen. So we're on Rumble tonight, but we do have the Rumble over there. Looks like X stayed up for Atlas, but not for me. So if you're on X, make sure to like the video or share the video, follow, all that good stuff as well. And then hopefully I'll have my PC back before Saturday and we'll be back up and running fully functional by Saturday. If not, oh man, if I don't have it back on Saturday, I don't know if I have any hope to have it on Monday because I don't know if these people work on the weekends. So
yeah, just take it to your nearby 7-Eleven. They'll help you out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. Jamie cracking me up. But yeah, other than that, Christ is King. And what else do you have? Anything?
That's all I got.
Sweet.
That's all I got.
Sweet. Well, let me you know what? I forgot I had to
6 inches, take it or leave it.
Yeah. Let's see here. I got one more thing. I got to add this. All right. So with that, we'll see you guys on Saturday.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. We'll see you.
All right. Christ is King.
Christ is King.
With war rolling Atlas Thugged, we here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast, we breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fodder on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up, we won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast, where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thugged, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast, where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thugged, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast, where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas Thugged, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast, where the lies will decrease.